Hi, I'm Dave.
And I'm Jennifer, and we are a middle-aged couple with a Regal Unlimited subscription and a significant fondness for movie theater popcorn.
And we make a video for a movie we see together in 2026. And today we saw,
The Odyssey.
which it's going to be an interesting movie to review.
So can I just start
Yes.
with one physical review?
Yes.
Do not go sit in Auditorium 17 at Union Square.
Okay.
Or if you do, sit in the center of the theater.
Yeah.
I'm going to need to see this movie again because there are parts of the dialogue I did not hear. And I felt like I was assaulted in the ears by our choice of seats in this room. It's a big, giant room. We chose to go to Union Square because they're able to show it on 70 millimeter. It's not an IMAX screen, but it's a big, huge screen. It's a big, giant theater. I forgot, because we have been in this room before, that it has 2 tracks for the sound, and the room is so big that if you are closer to the back, you are only hearing the music track.
Right.
And if you are in the far left of the room, you are sitting in front of the speaker for the music track.
Yeah.
So the music is assaultingly loud. And then the voices are coming from speakers in the front of the room.
Yeah.
And so there's a decent portion of this movie where there is very interesting but very loud music that is then 75 times louder. So there's probably a full 5 to 7 minutes of dialogue scattered throughout the movie that I did not hear at all.
Yep.
Despite this very real fact, I very much enjoyed this movie.
Yeah, this is exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
That it's a movie we saw under
duress, painful
circumstances,
circumstances,
and yet loved.
Yeah.
So I would say this is the best movie we've seen since Sinners.
It probably is the best movie we've seen since Sinners. I've been saying all year that the best movie I've seen is The Sheep Detectives. This movie is better than The Sheep Detectives. If nothing else, there are actual real sheep in this movie.
It's just really good. That's enough review right there. You can just go see it. I think everybody should see it. I think that it's okay. So it's one of the great stories of literature. Now, specifically Western European literature, etc. But it's so central to modern culture. There's so many stories in the Odyssey that we have kind of taken as metaphors that we just live with all the time, like being caught between Scylla and Charybdis, or the Song of the Sirens, or
the existence of a mentor.
Yeah, the word mentor, or the Cyclops story, which I think everybody knows, or at least everybody knows what a Cyclops is.
Yeah.
Because of this story. And it feels like that in the hands of Christopher Nolan. It feels like a big central story that defines a culture. And it is absolutely our best window into, say, life in ancient Greece in the Bronze Age. Outside of archaeology. I don't know what I'm saying. But the point is, it's an important story. It's an important movie. And it's definitely worth seeing. Beyond that, it's really good.
Mm-hmm.
It is really well done. It's written wonderfully. It is directed masterfully. It is acted just soulfully and in ways that you wouldn't necessarily expect. Some of the characters are not what you think they're going to be, but they're still close enough to the version of the story that that they feel real and they feel meaningful. The story of the Trojan War is part of this, and it's that's worth knowing about. I would say that I'm trying to make this sound like it's an educational assignment. It's not. You should just go see this movie because it's fun. It's interesting. I didn't say it's fun, but it's interesting, and it's really well done. Just really, really well done, and it looks amazing, and it just the music that we heard that was blaring at us was amazing.
Ludwig Göransson
Yeah.
does it again.
With all ancient instruments.
Yep.
It's fascinating.
And voices. But
Yeah.
voices that are not singing words, voices that sound like, they're coming from beyond.
Okay.
Well, they're instruments, but they're instruments of doom or terror or whatever.
So I don't think we're going to worry about spoilers here for a 4,000-year-old story.
I will say that the ending is actually not the ending of the Odyssey. So
Fair.
that is a spoiler to tell you that it actually doesn't end the way you think it will end.
Okay.
And there's some thoughts to be had about that, to be honest. It's not a bad ending, right? I'm not, offended by the idea that he's changed the ending. It's interesting that that's the most major change, I feel like. Obviously not the entirety of the story is not in this movie. You couldn't put the entirety of the story in this movie. So it's chopped up a bit. But that's the most significant change, I feel like. But a lot of what might be different, I don't know. I haven't given too much thought to this story since 10th grade when I had to analyze it, right? I haven't thought about it in an analytical way outside of school. It's your Roman Empire. The
Maybe.
Odyssey is your Roman Empire.
I wrote a short story about Scylla, and I had to do a lot of research for that. So
Sure, yeah. I spoke for me. I haven't thought about this in an analytical way in a very long time, right? But certainly no way I was ever taught to analyze this story comes forth in this film, right? I'm assured that people analyze this story differently since I studied it in the late 80s in high school, right? I know there's all sorts of more interesting and feminist readings of it and stuff that I wouldn't have been exposed to in my school study of this story. And you were saying that this movie is influenced by this new translation of it, right? So it makes you, but I don't know how much of my thinking about this differently is a new translation and new interpretation, the choices of the filmmaker versus myself as somebody who's 52, right? And just thinking about the world differently and think, if I'm reading a story like that as a student, as a kid, I didn't relate to Telemachus, right? But that's the character I was the same age as, right? Where now I'm Matt Damon's age, right? I'm Odysseus's age. I'm the grizzled old, veteran of the world, right? And thinking about the things that you do in your life and thinking about the choices that you make and the bad choices that you make and, is your destiny fated to you? Is there some way that you are changing or shaping your destiny is a thing that I think about very differently in this part of my life than I did the last time I had to analyze the story. And so I feel like the movie is thinking about those things and has made visual and plot choices and stuff to give you the thought that this is a movie about and a story about how you think about yourself and how you do or how you are or are not able to kind of shape your own destiny. And I knew that's what the story was about, but like I said, hadn't really thought about it that way in a very, very long time. And just interesting to think about that differently as somebody who, has more life behind them than ahead of them, right? You just think about it differently.
I think Christopher Nolan has added that as a layer here. I think that this is a much more introspective Odyssey than I'm used to. Yeah, it's interesting because so growing up, I always thought Odysseus was my favorite culture hero, my favorite Greek hero, because he was the smart one, right? He wasn't the jock. He was the guy who figured out how to solve all the logic puzzles of the monsters and how to figure out how to get over the impossible problem. This character that Matt Damon portrays here has that,
and you see him do it,
but it's presented as more just common sense. It's presented more as most of these Greeks just cannot control themselves, and they've got these violent impulses, and they need to just dominate their world and so on. And here's the man who actually like thinks things through for a second, but even he is starting to realize that that's not enough. He can't solve the central problem of his age. The movie presents the Trojan War as this sort of ultimate betrayal that has broken human society. That sounds very pretentious. It's actually part of the movie, and it's presented pretty well. This idea that it's not the strongest part of the movie, but
No, I wasn't going to say that. I mean, what I wonder is what is the real break?
mm-hmm.
Is the break the war itself, or is the break the way that the war was won and
Right.
the Trojan horse? And I feel like at one part of the movie, I thought what I was getting was the idea that it was almost war itself, like that kind of big scale civilizational war itself is the break. But then I don't know if that's actually what the movie's saying, and that maybe what the movie is saying is the way that it had to end with the Trojan horse and bringing in
and
people,
burning Troy. Yeah.
Burning Troy from the inside, because
Yeah.
you've taken in something that you trust, and it burns you from the inside.
Yes.
That's the rupture, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't know if I don't know which interpretation the movie is giving, or if the movie doesn't solidly have a single interpretation, right? And that it mentions both of those. I don't know which one is the case.
Yeah.
And I think those are two very different messages, right? Like, if war itself, big civilizational war itself, is the rupture, that's an anti-war movie, right?
Yeah.
Like,
and I think this is.
I guess that's what I'm saying. I don't know if that is actually the case.
Okay.
Or if what it really is a movie about bringing something in from the outside that is a danger, and bringing danger in, and that danger being the type of danger that contravenes the rules of the gods, right? Like that you're supposed to treat outsiders like they are part of you. And the only way that this war is won is by bringing in outsiders unintentionally,
Right.
and those outsiders not behaving appropriately to their hosts. They kill their hosts as opposed to being hosted by them, right? Like, if that's the real rupture, then that's a very different kind of rupture than war itself being the rupture. And those are very different messages in 2026.
But I think the movie actually takes both of those and puts them together, because I think this is a movie about a veteran with PTSD.
Yes.
And I think that is what was missing for me until just now. I thought, oh, right, no, this is about a guy with PTSD. And his process of coming home is presented in the movie very much as him not wanting to go home, being afraid to go home, because he doesn't know what home means anymore. He's been at the war for so long. That's what makes sense to him now, and violence makes too much sense. And the horrors that he sees on his journey home, that feels like reality rather than the normalcy of his life before. And so he has to do the work. He has to basically go through therapy with
Calypso. Yeah.
To understand who he is and what he wants from going home, and also what he can't get from going home, what is now lost to him, and he must reconcile those things. And I think it's just like a really, like, we make it sound like it's this deep introspective thing, and it's presented as, here's a guy fighting a bunch of monsters for most of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is presented as this deep introspective thing.
Yeah.
And
it wants you to read it that
it's
way.
Interspersed with this guy fighting monsters, but then the guy fights monsters, and then there's always some moment of thinking about what fighting those monsters meant,
or why that monster exists,
or why that monster exists, or where it is in the journey. And so it's like, yeah, it's the analysis that you might do of this story, it becomes part of the story. You know, and that you're not doing that analysis. There is an analysis that's built into the story itself.
And Nolan brings in elements from the Odyssey that I think a lot of people don't consider to be part of the Odyssey, like the story of Agamemnon and Clytemnestra, the story of Menelaus and Helen, and so on, and things we think of as probably part of the Iliad. Those are actually in the Odyssey. I looked it up, and the aftermath of the war is very much all of these great heroes being destroyed by their own personalities, their own like choices, the choices they made during the war and the mistakes that they made to win that war. And Odysseus is the one who, you know, survives through that process.
Who's
the
wily
best.
enough to survive, right? Like that's what I remember from the
Right,
translation
but
I
here
read back
it's
in the day.
willing to do the work, is willing to do the therapy to survive. And God, it's just such a good movie.
Yeah.
I could talk about this for hours, and I don't think we should.
Yeah.
I think people should just go see this for themselves.
It is visually very interesting.
The monster designs, I thought...
The monster designs are really, really interesting.
I was really worried about that as a monster guy. Like, I thought seeing the trailers and things, it looked really kind of weird and kind of simplified, made gritty, made like too ultra realistic. They're not. There are moments of real horror in this movie, especially around the Cyclops scene. There's this sense of just, oh no, that's what it would be like to be, you know, preyed on by a giant.
I mean, there are a lot of scenes that are quite horrific, and it does have this like gritty, real feeling, but in ways that are, I think, are appropriate and are like, oh yeah, I never really thought about it that way, you know, like that don't detract from the story.
Right.
And so it feels gross, it feels smelly, it feels claustrophobic at times, as big and enormous as it is. There are some sequences that are in very small spaces or are made to feel like they're in very small spaces and feel very claustrophobic and small and terror-filled because they're claustrophobic and small and dark.
Yeah.
And that's done visually very well. There's more than one female character in this movie.
And the female characters are treated with sympathy, but also dimensionality.
Yeah, like you know, there is an element in, you know, the original text of this story that, you know, women exist as the prize, women exist as the mechanism that, you know, either impedes the hero's story or is meant to, you know, get the hero's story going. And the movie has some of that, right? Like you can't completely get away from that. But, you know, so the female characters aren't multidimensional in that sense. But for what they are in the arc of this story, without completely remaking the whole story from beginning to end, Samantha Morton as Circe and Anne Hathaway as Penelope are both given real meaty pieces, right? No one is in this movie for a very long time, oddly enough. There are so many characters in the movie that only Odysseus, I would say, has lots and lots and lots of screen time. And everybody else has smaller chunks. But in the two chunks of screen time that they have, and Anne Hathaway has much more screen time than Samantha Morton does, they both have something really to do. And they are given something rich, and then they do something rich with what they're given. Yeah,
both actresses really do elevate what they are given.
Yeah.
And they're already given something pretty
But they're
good.
also given something that allows them to do it.
Yeah.
Lupita Nyong'o is not given something that allows her to do it.
No,
I really don't think it is her. I really do think it is what she's given in the movie. Although she is given more in the movie than you might think, which is another actual spoiler. And then Charlize Theron is in it as well. She is also not given a whole lot to do. She does well with what she's given, but she's not given a whole lot to do.
Zendaya is given a nice little role, but it's not
Again,
much to
she
it.
doesn't have. Yeah, she doesn't. There isn't much to the role. She can
on
do
screen for
more than this.
Maybe 2 or 3 minutes of the entire runtime.
Yeah, maybe more than that. But she has a very small part. She shows up more than once, but each time she shows up, it's not for very long in calendar time, in clock time. But there's more than one female character, like, and they do things that in the context of the story make sense in the story. Do they make sense in the real world? No. But then again, witches don't make a whole lot of sense in the real world, But in the context of the story, they really do. So that was good. They're not as if, they just shouldn't be there.
Right.
In Oppenheimer, there shouldn't have been any female characters in Oppenheimer. There was literally no purpose. Yeah.
So negatives about the movie, and I will start with a couple. One is that you really don't need to see this on IMAX. It's amazing to me. It's a beautiful movie, and you should see it on a big screen. But I don't think you need to see it on like any kind of special, gigantic screen, because it is filmed so closely to the characters. Most of the shots in the movie are close-ups. Most of the shots in the movie are tightly zoomed in on Odysseus, what he's doing in any given particular moment.
See, I guess I don't have a way to know that, because I felt like there were parts of the movie that were very, very dark.
Yeah.
And the text of the titles
in the credits,
I found impossible to read. We always sit all the way through the credits. We left. Partially, I needed to leave. I literally had a headache from the volume of the music that was literally sitting like right here screaming at me.
Mm-hmm.
But then also, I couldn't read the blue on the black.
Yeah.
And I do think that is a translation to IMAX thing, right? Like, my understanding is that the frame on IMAX is bigger. And so that there's like, a ribbon at the top and the bottom that's filmed that we don't see. So I don't know how those close-ups are actually intended to be.
Yeah.
And maybe things feel closer than they should, because there's literally part of the screen you don't see. So some of the big shots where they're on the sea and, they're moving up and down in the ship and stuff, like those are big shots, but they don't feel as big as maybe they should. And I think maybe they don't feel as big because you literally don't see part of the shot. It's not like it's resized the aspect ratio isn't changed to fit the screen we see. There's just shit we don't see.
I hear you, but I think to me the issue was like, and this is very carefully chosen, like when you see the ship at sea, you're seeing the ship at sea from inside the ship.
Not always.
Almost always, you are looking through like a camera that is on board that ship, and the camera might be looking out at the sea. It might be looking at dolphins swimming by, or it could be looking at another boat, 20 feet away. But that camera was on that boat. It's not a drone shot. It's not a long shot. It's not a shot from another boat. This was most evident to me in the scene with Charybdis, the whirlpool, which any other movie would have shown you a bird's eye view of that maelstrom trying to suck down the ship. From this, we only see it from the perspective of the sailors. Again, with the sirens, we never actually see what the sirens look like. We see this
that I thought was
shadowy
really
forms
interesting,
flitting around some rocks.
And we don't get a sense of the sound. My vision of what the sirens are doing is singing the most beautiful song in the world, and they are not. They are like telling you something that, like, he's not happy. He's not so ecstatic. That, like, my vision of what Odysseus was when he's hearing the sirens is that he's either so ecstatic or horny that he wants to go to them.
Yeah.
And he is in terror and like
screaming
in like, it's almost like the sirens force him to see himself.
Well, he talks about it afterwards.
And that's what he's hearing. But you also get the sense that people hear what they want
Yes.
to hear
Because one of his
someone
sailors
else
does actually
hears it
hear
and is like, oh hell yeah, I want to join this, I want to get off and I want to join you, and he looks joyous before he jumps off the boat.
Whereas Matt Damon looks like he's being tortured.
He looks like he's literally being set on fire.
Yeah.
And that I thought was really,
That was
really fascinating.
Yeah, there's so
and
many
that you don't
incredible
see the
choices in
sirens at all. You barely even see the island. And so there's all sorts of choices like that. And yes, you are right. There are a lot of shots from the level of the boat. But there are actually more shots than I think you realize of the boat at sea from above. And I don't think they stuck with you because they didn't feel big enough.
Okay.
Because part of the shot we literally didn't see. There's a bunch of shots where on almost every place, including Ithaca, and then places where they land, it's always up. They land on a beach, and then you go a little bit, and then there's something up. And there are a bunch of shots like looking up to these places, and then with sky behind them and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think some of those shots are meant to feel bigger than they did. They feel like big shots. Mm-hmm. So I think this is definitely something to watch on as big a screen as you can. Obviously, there's not that many IMAX screens around. And even the IMAX screens, the only IMAX screen in the city that shows it IMAX 70 millimeter is Lincoln Square. Mm-hmm. And so seeing it on any other IMAX screen is not what he shot. Seeing it at AMC Lincoln Square is seeing the movie he shot. And so I don't think you need to do that, but maybe you could. I don't know. Whatever. See it on as big a screen as you can is my point.
My other negative, I actually have three negatives. So the second one is the fight scenes.
Mm-hmm.
There are a couple scenes where Odysseus, his good ideas run out, and he's just got to kick some butt. And he's very good at it.
Jason Bourne it.
They make it very clear that he's very good at kicking butt.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God, I don't care. Those scenes are so boring.
They go on too long.
They go on way too long.
And they are the kinds of scenes where I'm talking about they're being very dark. The very last fight scene verges on that kind of dark, not well shot fight scene where you can't quite tell what's going on. Yeah. I realized I didn't care because what I did care about, I could follow. And the details of who was getting their ass whooped in this way, I couldn't follow. Yeah. Now, also, part of it, that was another one of the sequences where the sound was really hard.
Yeah.
It was impossibly loud.
Yes.
And so I don't know how much of my not being able to follow the screen was like, oh yeah, no, the headache is really real now, because this was close to the end of the movie. Yeah. So again, I feel like if I saw it in another movie theater, or in that same screening room, but in the right spot, I might have been able to follow what was going on the screen better because my head wouldn't have hurt so bad.
I don't know. I don't know why you would bother. It's just he's kicking butt, and he just keeps at it, and it goes on forever. It's not
and then butts have been.
I have seen really long, extended fight scenes that actually meant something to me because they were so brutal, or they were so the people involved were so exhausted. That's not this. It is just.
Or they were visually interesting.
He's a kick-ass guy, and he's kicking ass.
What was the martial arts movie we saw earlier? The Furious,
that
right? All those fight scenes. Go on for eternity.
Yes.
The movie is
but they're
85...
interesting because there's a story happening while this fight scene is happening.
Yes. But also they are shot in such a way that you can follow every moment of the fight scene.
Yeah.
And those fight scenes all had fewer people than this last one, particularly in the Odyssey, which had a gazillion people in it. But
there were some gazillion people fights in the Furious.
There were, but you could follow what every person was doing, or what every person you knew you were supposed to care. Mm-hmm. And this was a little muddy in terms of the blocking of particularly that last fight scene. And so, just to make it shorter means that some of that doesn't matter because it doesn't happen. Yeah. And that would be great. Yeah. So the movie could be 5-7 minutes
There's another
shorter.
Fight scene that I think also goes on too long, although it does make thematic sense, and that's the fight for Troy.
Yeah, I think that needed to be...
Coming out of the horse and fighting to get the gates open. That takes really a long time.
Yeah.
That needs to be in there. I don't think it
Yes.
needs to be as long as it is. So my final complaint, or negative, I don't think it's a complaint, it's a negative, is that the ending drags. The ending of the Odyssey, the poem, also drags. So I guess that makes sense. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of, well, we need to prepare for this, and we need to make sure this happens, and Telemachus needs to be in the right place, and these servants are loyal, and blah blah blah. But it just didn't need to be in this movie. And I think
I disagree.
Okay.
I think what makes the ending feel long is because you get all of that, and you get this very long fight sequence.
Yeah.
And the fight, and I guess because we know the story, like the fight sequence, it just has this foregone conclusion. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, dude, Odysseus is going to kick ass and he going to win, right? So if you're not going to give me a moment, the fight sequence doesn't have a moment where it looks like he's going to lose, right? And so if you're not going to make it long...
It does. It just doesn't... They don't sell it.
They don't sell it, right?
There's a part where he's down on the floor covered in dudes. And then he's just like, nah, I'm going to stand back up and keep fighting. Yeah.
And so, if you're not going to kind of really make it clear that he could potentially lose and, somehow he wins, then the fight scene needs to be shorter than the setup, because the setup actually tells you something that's going to happen in the fight sequence, which again you can resolve pretty quickly. So, otherwise I actually don't think it's too long.
Okay. I felt like the whole part with the temple and him and Odysseus just like coming up, like literally going up to every single person from his childhood and being like, "Oh, Odysseus is still alive. Don't worry. No, I'm not Odysseus. Don't mind me."
But that's what happens in the story. There's
but
less.
That's what I'm saying.
There's less of that in this
movie.
There's less of that in this movie than there is in the story.
Of course there is.
And so
but still, there's too much.
Yeah. What I think there is too much of is the last third of the movie is where like there's an enormous number of each fight sequence is long. The fight sequence in the temple is long. The fight sequence in Troy is long. The fight sequence back in Ithaca is long. And they're all in the last third of the movie.
Act, yeah.
So each of those fight sequences, if you make those shorter and nothing else changes, I feel like the movie would feel not so long.
I feel like, the return to Ithaca is really important to this version of the story. And so Nolan has actually absolutely stretched it out. I get that. I do feel like a few of the earlier scenes feel a little rushed. And that's interesting in a 3-hour movie. I feel like the whole Cyclops sequence, which is so... It's a great story about Odysseus being able to problem solve. And here it's just presented as, oh no, it's obvious how you do this. Here are the 3 things we need to do. 1, 2, 3, let's go. And then they just do them. And there's a sequence in the I don't remember the name of these creatures, but they go to this one island and there's these guys in the woods who just like, they're really tall and they have really shiny armor. And I'm sure that there's more to that in the poem. It's just a fight scene, and it doesn't add anything to the movie.
It looks cool.
Even the section with Circe, I felt like, just goes way too fast. Odysseus figures out what's going on and how to solve this problem. Yet again, way too fast for the evidence he's presented with, and I just feel like Nolan kind of wanted to get through the monster mash stuff to get to the real emotional core of this movie. And I don't think that's necessarily a mistake. It just felt like those early parts were rushed and the later parts were stretched out.
Sure. The Odyssey is an epic. It could be, as you said, a trilogy. It could be 6 fucking movies.
The best positive of this whole thing
is that it's a 3-hour movie.
He did not make this a trilogy.
Yes.
This is not The Lord of the Rings. This is not The Hobbit. Or Dune. This is... We're going to tell the story in one movie, and then it'll be done.
Yes.
There is no sequel to this.
Yes.
Like it is. Like I guarantee you, there's some studio out there that's like, what about the continuing adventures of Odysseus? What about Telemachus 2? I just think
no.
Somebody's trying.
No.
Look what they did with the Lord of the Rings, with all the Rings of Power and the Tales of Gollum and all this stuff. Because this movie's going to make $1 billion. It's already kind of on par to do that, and like they're going to want more. So does Nolan make an Iliad movie?
No. I mean, because he made $1 gazillion with Oppenheimer. Like, no, that's not how this goes.
I'm still waiting for Oppenheimer 2, the post-war years, but yeah.
Well,
I guess that's actually in Oppenheimer. But
exactly,
yes.
and is part of the problem of Oppenheimer that he put that in there too. Those are two different fucking movies.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay. I think Oppenheimer is much slower and more seditious than this.
And just not interesting.
I found Oppenheimer very interesting.
It was interesting.
I really
it wasn't.
Oppenheimer.
It wasn't all that.
But
it really was not all that.
I will say I didn't like Tenet.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's a whole different thing.
So, but I loved the Odyssey. I think it's fantastic. This is by far our longest video. For a 3-hour movie, why not? And a movie with a lot to talk about, because we could keep going on about this movie. But I think we definitely need to move on now.
Yes.
All right. So, final review, good.
Mm-hmm. Go see it.
A+. Go see it.
Just please, all the tiny baby Jesuses, if you go see this at Union Square, sit in row like
yeah, don't sit in the back of the theater all the way over the side. Yeah.
Oh, you'll regret it.
You really will. Okay, until next time.
Bye.
Bye.